Tell us a little bit about the Nehemiah venture and just how that whole side of your life got started.
Nehemiah Group started in 1999, and it was not really well thought through. It was one of those things where I was doing some missions in Bosnia in the war, right after the war. Went with a friend, Jim Baumgartner, and we journeyed to Bosnia to see what was going on, what had happened, and what the need was. And so I showed up in Sarajevo, and he and I went out into the countryside and started meeting with people. And as I told you, it was a horrible experience that I don't wish on anybody. I feel so sorry for what happened there. But I've met these 3 little girls that had watched their mother gang raped and then their throats cut. I mean, gang raped for 30 days, and I had little girls. And so I was like, oh my gosh, so it just stuck with me. And so I came back, and I just couldn't quit thinking about it. And so I kept going back. And there for a while, it was like almost every 6 weeks, just going back.
God kept bringing that to your mind, bringing it back up. Wasn't going to let it rest.
Then I opened my big mouth one day, and I said, I met the mayor and the prime minister, and they thanked me for what we were doing. And I said, you guys need to come to Louisville and meet with Yum and Ford and groups like that to get your markets back, like sell tomatoes, chickens, and things like that to Western European operations. And so they took me up on it. And I was like, oh, no.
Now what have I started?
What have I started? So I come back, and things just couldn't come together. And I was headed back over to meet them. It was about a month out before they were to come. And as fast as I'm going to tell you this story, this happened, So I'm talking to Jim Baumgartner on the Internet, and I said, man, I've overloaded my mouth here, and I don't know much about international business, but I need help, And he said, well, there's this lady that goes to our church. It's an international church here in Sarajevo. Her name's Mary Ann Kurtz. She works for some bank or something, So, okay, that's cool. So Tom Rowe, who's a member at Southeast with me, he flew along with me, and I told him, I said, I'm glad you're here because nobody believed this story. But he and I flew over. Jim greets us, takes us over to his apartment. We drop our stuff off. I call Mary Ann. She says, come on over. And we did, and went over, and it said World Bank. And I said, well, this is a good sign, So we go in, and she said, well, how'd you get started here? And I said, a friend of mine wanted to become a missionary here, and I just tagged along with him. And she goes, well, what church? And I said, Southeast Christian. She goes, Bob Russell? I'm like, yeah.
He's known in Bosnia.
Yeah. So, yeah. She goes, well, when I grew up in southern Indiana, I listened to him on the radio. And when I went to U of L, I went to Southeast.
So she's a Bosnian lady.
No, she's American.
She's an American.
And she's halfway around the world. So I said, okay, here's what I've done. I've opened my big mouth, and I said, I'm trying to help them get some connections with European, Yum and Ford and others. That's a great idea, And so she gets excited about it, and she goes, you need to talk to Ambassador Thomas Miller. And I'm like, okay. And so she calls his office, and he says, come on over. And literally, as fast as I'm telling you this is going. So next thing I know, I'm going to meet the United States ambassador. So I go over to the embassy, go through the Bosnian guards to the U.S. Marines, and I'm finally let into a room about the size of your studio here with a big bank vault door on it. And I'm greeted by the ambassador of the United States, Thomas Miller. So he and I are talking about what my idea was and what I thought, and he thought it was great. I'm thinking,
nobody knows yet that you have no clue how to put this off.
Exactly. So little old Greg Blakemore from Louisville, Kentucky is
with a great idea.
So he's talking to the ambassador, and he thought it was great. Calls the 3 presidents of the country. They've got a Croatian, Bosnian, and a Serbian president, and they get on the line. They think it's great. And I'm like, if anybody knew, So make a long story short, they invite me to they come to Louisville. Greg Dietrich,
who comes to Louisville?
The Prime Minister and the Mayor.
Okay.
And Greg Dietrich helps me. He was president of KFC at the time. He helps me get them connected with the European or the International Purchasing Group. And my friend Tom worked at Ford, and he got him with Ford. We showed him UPS, met the mayor, and it was good. And so they said, okay, we want you to do this. So I quit a good-paying job at Luck and Farley Architects and took off to start a business and work for them. And
Okay, before we go into this next part, we just got to stop for just a minute.
Okay, sounds fair.
We got to take a deep breath here. This is unbelievable. I mean, it is a good thing somebody was with you because nobody would believe this stuff. So you go over on what you're thinking is a short-term mission trip.
Right.
You're going to help out a friend.
Yeah.
And you see the situation. God moves in your heart. You end up back at home. And he won't let it rest inside of you. And so you just make one of those casual comments without a whole lot to back it up. You're thinking, well, it's a great idea. Maybe somebody else will get it done.
Like Peter, he had a foot in his mouth all the time. That was me.
And so you lay out this God-sized thing, and you end up in places where you never dreamed you would be, making connections that just shouldn't have been.
Absolutely. There's no way I could claim anything about it other than God just orchestrated that.
So you're standing there. I mean, is your jaw dropping open?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Tom Rowe and I walked out of there and go, can you believe what just happened?
What just happened?
Yeah. So
But God had strategically placed you, even back here in little old Louisville, with some connections in the right places with some men who could actually get some things done.
Absolutely.
Wow. So God used you to be just like a little centerpiece right there, just pulling those things together.
Yeah. He gave me a front row seat to watch him work. It was just cool.
I love that.